Okay, guys, hello again. I mean, it's great to be here as always. And, today what we are trying actually to come up with is the bright side of things, if I may put it that way. Let's just talk about still anti-Semitism, but from a different angle.
Happy side.
A happy side, yeah. I think so. Not everything is well understood. A lot of things are being taken with criticism. Maybe this is something that should be, at least for the time being. But, as Charles said, I've been to those states, Arab states of the Abraham Accords. I have to tell you that I've been there actually before there was an accord. So basically we had a real opportunity to experience the Arab Middle East from an unprecedented perspective, and to have kind of a very unique experience. Now I will share with you some of the experiences, some of the thoughts, and it would be very, very interesting to have in your file such stories, quote unquote, also. For that matter, let me just give you a short, how should I say, kind of an introductory notes with regard to the history of the Arab Middle East. What we got here is this Morocco, the Atlantic Ocean, and this is the Gulf. In Arabic, ocean is Muhit, Gulf is Khalij, and in the 50s and the 60s, there were many prophets in the Arab fold, especially Gamal Abdel Nasser, president of Egypt, who came up with the title or the slogan, من المحيط إلى الخليج, which means 22 Arab states should be united under one flag. This was, of course, actually corresponded with the spirit or the atmosphere of the 50s and the 60s, post-colonial Middle East, and the whole story of let us actually build up a nation of ours, of our own. This was the Arab nation. Well, today we got the opposite. If there is one thing we can say about the Arab world, is that the Arab world is highly fragmented. As I said before, everybody for itself. And if at all we're gonna have a bunch of states actually in geographical proximity, seeing eye to eye some major concerns, they are coming up with kind of a union, North Africa, Gulf, and so on and so forth. In the recent decades, the whole emphasis in the Middle East was to shift eastwards. Even when you go to Middle Eastern studies, at least in Israel, and I think in some universities in the world, the focus had been always in the 20th century, the eastern flank of the Mediterranean, where Israel and its Arab neighbors are. The Israeli-Arab conflict, Palestinian-Israeli conflict, the foci was here. It was sort of the middle of the thing. Recent decades, we are shifting eastwards toward the Gulf. Oil, Iran-Iraq war, the longest war in the 20th century in the Middle East, not between Israeli and Arabs, between Muslims, Arab and Persians, Sunni and Shia, 8 years of war. And of course, many imbroglios or kind of major wars that were here in 1991, Saddam Hussein, and the whole story. So the Gulf has become a foci geopolitically speaking and geoeconomically speaking. Until 71, all this, sorry for, but all this strip of Arab states of the Gulf had been controlled for 150 years by the British, who were sitting or residing in India. That was actually British India. They were running the show here for 150 years under the premise of Pax Britannica. And the British left in 1971. Thereafter, actually, we got independent Arab states, some of them very rich, but minuscule, tiny, very weak. And sooner we got kind of lions trying actually to have an easy prey, like Iraq Saddam and the Islamic Republic of Iran. So this whole drama, Iran, Iraq, and Arab states here, created kind of a geopolitical foci. If you take into account that most of the world's oil is in it, you got kind of a real socio-political, economical bomb. And this is the reason why actually this region has created kind of a crisis after crisis, a series of crises. And what we are trying to do here is just to get the story of United Arab Emirates. So here is the Gulf. See that? Gulf in Arabic is Khalij. If you stand in Abu Dhabi or Dubai, on the Arab side, you would say Al-Khalij Al-Arabi, which means Arabian Gulf. But if I'm going to go to the other side, I should speak Persian. In Persian, it is Khalij Fars. Khalij Fars is Persian Gulf. And this is not a semantic issue. This is just kind of a minor example to tell you how deep animosity is when it comes to the Gulf. Arabs and Persians, as I said before, and thereafter Sunni and Shia. There are some territorial disputes, and you have kind of a real saga here that came to be seen from the 70s, and this is why the shift, geopolitically and geoeconomically speaking, in the Middle East was to go there. Some of the states that became independent were very, very, as I said before, weak, even if they got a lot of money. One of them, help, nope, here. This is the United Arab Emirates. This is the belly of the Gulf. You see that? Okay. This is in British terms is the lower Gulf. This is the upper Gulf, Kuwait, where Saddam Hussein invaded in 1990. But we are talking about the lower Gulf. This is kind of a very, very strange creature, unprecedented in the Arab fold. This is a federation. You see 7 colors here. 7 colors. Each color stands for a specific emirate. There are 7 emirates. The biggest are, of course, Abu Dhabi. Here, this is the capital city. And adjacent to Abu Dhabi is Dubai, in purple or violet. Okay, so we are in the story of this 7 emirate federation. 52 years old now. Very young. But pretty successful in many, many folds of life. But with a lot of problems, because when you have neighbors like Iran and Iraq, and you are not that strong, you have a real problem. So let's just see what is the story of this state, just shortly, because I want to come to... This is exactly what happened there until the 60s. Divers dealing with fish industry, people who came from the Gulf and were to reside along the coast. In no time, actually, it was to be turned into El Dorado, Dubai, all these, towers. And of course, when it comes to such a society, very traditional, very patriarchal, you have 1,000 problems more when you have kind of a transition, very, very shift with a lot of money to create sort of a Dubai and stuff like that. So always we have here the notion of how should I move forward without antagonizing my tradition. So this is a dance that you should be familiar with. A dance, for example, that the Shah of Iran didn't have the wisdom to have. If you are going to breach in the Middle East those walls of tradition, of history, you're going to create from within enemies that do adhere to your past, and they are going actually to become your rivals from within. So, whether or not you have the ability and the expertise to smoothly have this whole process of interweaving past and future, or past and present, in order to have a safer future, this is the story here. So we have to bear that in mind. What happened to this state? At a certain stage, actually, this state, the United Arab Emirates, this federation, had to decide whether or not, or to what extent it should, go on with the same, under the same modus operandi. The founder was Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. He passed away in 2004. Until then, the United Arab Emirates was a very tiny state, rich though, that found kind of a way by which to, have or stick itself to consensual, I would say, positions of the Arab and Islamic world. And when there was a problem, actually, they were using their money in order to buy them off. That was the deal. Purse diplomacy, we name it, cynically. Two things happened in the beginning of the 21st century, that made this state actually recalculate or refoster its future strategy. First of which was 9/11. You know that saboteurs were 19 saboteurs after 9/11. 15 out of 19 were Saudis. Two of them, one practically and one behind the scenes, were Emiratis. This was sort of a shock for this leadership, because this is a state that runs an economy that is very, very strongly tied up to the world market. And it goes without saying that if you are being identified with such atrocities, horrors, it is going actually to have an impact on our relations with you and your economy and your performance and everything. So this is the story of Dubai. A minute Dubai is out of the wheel, it's doomed. Always has to go on, and Dubai hasn't got a lot of oil, just minor quantity. The richest is, of course, Abu Dhabi. There, a bell was rung. What happened here? They were to discover that those guys, actually one of them who studied in Germany, and was part of the company, so to speak, of the saboteurs of 9/11, was an Emirati citizen. And some of the money, actually, the saboteurs were to get an Al-Qaeda organization, were going through UAE informal channels. Sort of a banking which was, owned by private firms. It is called Barakat. And basically, this was the channel through which some of the money to those saboteurs were to actually have its own way.
Excuse me, you said Barakat?
Barakat. Not Baraka, Barakat. Yes, this is the
bank.
The bank. But I have to tell you. Sure. I know that you know. Barakat is not something formal. It's not that the leadership of the UAE was supporting. The opposite would be true. They were bewildered, amazed, and very, very astonished to find that this was happened under their or in their territory. In the aftermath of the 9/11, they started actually crack down on people who were identified with this whole thing. They jumped to the conclusion also that it should not be only Al-Qaeda and later on ISIS. They were hunting Muslim brothers. What they found is that the Muslim brothers in the United Arab Emirates, as was the case the Muslim brothers in Saudi Arabia, they were providing sort of an envelope, ideologically speaking, practically speaking, for people who actually were adhering to sort of an Islam with which actually to create different platforms when it comes to the politics of the UAE, the politics of Saudi Arabia, etc. To make a long story short, Muslim brothers in this state are outlawed. They are outlawed. They cannot actually have their own free activity because they are not to be trusted. It was put to the test. They were more than welcome in the past by the state. Thereafter, what we had seen is something different, and since then we are dealing with that. Of course, that the tsunami of extremism that was orchestrated by ISIS, that was for them kind of a disaster, because now they had been forced to take a decision. Many in the world would take Muslim states, more or less, be very, very, in kind of a very, very sensitive position, because they could heavily influenced by those ideologies. What the United Arab Emirates decided in 2014, that what may be, the bottom line should be that this state is not only not identified with extremism, religiously speaking, it fights against extremism. It counters extremism, and you find their tiny but very, very, I would say, sophisticated army accompany every I would say, battle or combating terrorism, either in the Middle East, Afghanistan, Syria, when ISIS was there, and beyond, and of course beyond the Middle East. So, I mean, there was kind of a decision taken by, he was then the heir, today he is the president. In English, people actually name him MBZ, but we do not do that because this is kind of a way by which to, in my opinion, actually say something that is not being taken quite positive in the other side. Mohammed bin Zayed, of course you have MBZ, MBS, MBR, everything is Mohammed bin. What counts is what is the last letter. but let's just name him Mohammed bin Zayed. He was the heir then. Now he is the president. And he actually was orchestrating a new strategy for this state. You know, in Israel and in some other parts of the Middle East, there were things in 2016, 17, 18, 19 that were unheard of when it comes to this state. And many people actually came with the legitimate question, is that true? Is that real? Many people would rather actually take it as a lip service or something by which to come up with a more sophisticated game in order to show kind of a nice face to the West. But this is what we found. First of all, the question was asked in kind of an unprecedented manner by many Arab states. In Arabic, his man huwa al-adu, I just said that before. Who is my enemy? So that was a very, very, I would say, great moment in the Middle East. This is history. Many Arab states were forced by reality to ask questions that hadn't been asked in the 20th century because the answer was pretty clear. Who is my enemy in the 20th century? It was a rhetoric question. In the 21st century, and especially in this moment, who is my enemy? If I'm going to define an existential threat, how it looks like, where does it come from? The bottom line here is that Israel is not the enemy. And once again, don't think that they don't have a very, very fierce criticism about Israel. Yes, they are, they have. The thing is that if I would like actually to better myself, I'm looking at my young generations, I'm asking myself, where am I heading to? If I would like to better myself, I should redefine the set of foes and friends in this region. And in this redefinition or revisiting who my enemy is, etc., we got something which is, once again, very, very major, very, very unique. First of all, they found their tiny neighbor Qatar that was mentioned here before as kind of a fierce rival. Why? Al Jazeera, the Arab satellite in Qatar, was making roads for, or opened the roads for, I would say, political Islam, supporting organs that are identified with the Muslim brothers, Hamas, for example, siding with Erdogan, AKP, and so on and so forth. In the UAE, you can see there was an industry that had been seen actually in the recent years about who the Ikhwan are. Yeah, Muslim brothers, pious, friendly, dealing with social stuff, helping out needy people, which is right in many cases. But behind the scenes, I mean, this is just part of the industry actually that was published by the United Arab Emirates Research Centers. This is Ikhwan al-Shatat, which means that Muslim brothers are not only in the Middle East, they can be found everywhere. The question is whether you have the ability or the lens by which to identify it. Second is Turkey al-Ikhwaniyya. Turkey, Erdogan, is becoming a champion of the Muslim brothers then. Today it is pretty different, but this is just an example. here you have, of course, some stuff that can be said here. Anwar Garagash is kind of a very, very highly esteemed UAE diplomat. He said once and again, actually, we have to look at this direction because these guys are actually creating kind of a different atmosphere, and they to be accused by the simple fact that people are doing this and that, and on behalf of Islam are coming up with atrocities. So Qaradawi, of course, is a name to just be reckoned with here. Sheikh Yusuf Qaradawi, he used to be actually one of the leaders, if I can actually speak of Islamic law. He was residing in Qatar, of course, for years, and not in Qatar. Qatar became or hosted many, many people who were troublemakers in that sense, and still do. Let's see what we have found. In 2015, a law was passed to combat discrimination and hatred in the UAE. You know, you get it and you see what's going on here. This is a state which would, you know, be defined by any Westerner as a dictatorship or sort of an absolute monarchy or whatever. We have here 8 million foreign workers and less than 2 million citizens. But things were coming through and made you actually deal with that. In the first place, you are very suspicious, of course, and you take it as kind of a lip service. 2016, establishment of ministerial post to promote tolerance and the creation of a nation tolerance program. Tolerance, this is kind of a big issue here. In Arabic, it is tasamuh. So a lady, young lady, was appointed Minister of Tolerance in the United Arab Emirates. Once again, this was very, very strange, and a double check was called upon. But this is something that we should. I want to inform you because this came to us in kind of a very, very strange way. And thereafter, we had in abundance many indications that it has become of a rally. This is part of a big thing. Institute of Tolerance and the Year of Tolerance in 2019. This is the historic visit of the Pope to the UAE. First ever of the Pope in the Arabian Peninsula. What was written after this visit is kind of a letter of Ikhwa Insaniya. It's brotherly humanity. We would have many things that would say that, you know, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, in the end of the day, are coming from the same source, from the same origin. Of course, Abraham, the father of all these monotheist religions. You see here, this is Al-Tayyib. He is the head of Al-Azhar, coming to Abu Dhabi, or was invited on behalf of the Sunni world. The Pope was here. Some rabbis were there too. And there was sort of a discourse which was very, very, I would say, unique. Once in a lifetime in an Arab and a Muslim state that opened its gates to have that kind of a thing. You can understand that a vitriolic propaganda against the United Arab Emirates was already then had already taken part there. I mean, we got kind of a very, very, I would say, harsh criticism coming from Iran, from Turkey, from many Arab states, to host the Pope in an Arab land in the Arabian Peninsula. This was something that irritated many in the Arab and Islamic fold. This was 2019. This is a stamp which was actually produced in 2019, commemorating what calls in Arabic Am al-Tasamuh, which means the year of tolerance, as I told you. What we can see in Saniya, humanity, Am al-Tasamuh, year of tolerance. I don't want to go in it, but a bunch of motives, ideas, sayings, slogans that encourage people to think in a different way, in which actually the other is not necessarily my enemy. At times he could be or she could be my friend. What counts is whether I am able to understand his or her difference in comparison to me. And once I do internalize actually what the difference is, from that stage we can have kind of a platform on which to cooperate. And then we got to the US textbooks. We've been there. It's not kind of a whim. We just researched that. What do or does a pupil in the second, let's say in the 5th or 6th grade have when it comes to the curricula? Of course, how Israel is being portrayed, that for sure, but not that only. How is the other is being portrayed there? And in this state, you have a cosmopolitan flavor. You have Baha'is, you have Sikhs, Buddhists, Jews, Christians, of course, Muslims, Shiites, Sunnis. Everybody actually could do the job, so to speak, when it comes to worshiping your religion. But let me just read you something that would be very, very telling. In most cases in the Arab states, when Israel was mentioned, nobody say the word. Nobody says the word Israel. What was the notion? Al-Kiyan al-Sahayuni, which means Zionist entity. Zionism was kind of an idiom by which to demonize the other, of course, in that case Israel. Here you have Israel. We got maps of the Middle East with Israel in it, not Palestine. We got many, many things that told us that, yes, Palestinians have a problem. And we, Emiratis, have a problem too, because we have to strive with everybody to kind of a solution of the Palestinian problem, but not by annihilating Israel, not by demolishing Israel. Loud and clear, Israel is a state. It has the right to exist. And this was the best gift Israel had ever got in this Middle East. Yesterday, I've been interviewed day and night about this normalization with Saudi Arabia that is in the offing, according to something that was actually published in the Wall Street Journal. And this is a big thing, actually, normalization with Saudi Arabia. But you have to just bear this in mind. Any time, every step that normalizing relations of an Arab state with Israel, this is another progress Israel is making toward a better future. Because we as kids in Israel, actually, let's say 40, 50 years ago, this is my case, more so. We were educated, not educated, that was the reality. You are against everybody. There were songs about that. There were rhythms about that. This is how you grew up in Israel in the 60s and the 70s. You are alone. You have a very tiny state. I wish we could go back to the map, but you don't need that. You know how big Israel is, territorially speaking. And around us, there are a bunch of enemies. The irony of history would be that that time, Ben Gurion and the Israeli leadership, when they tried actually to come up with an answer, are there any tzaddikim in Sodom and Gomorrah? Are there any, let us say, good guys? Yeah. Iran, for example, was the good guy under the Shah. Turkey was a good guy. Ethiopia was a good guy. I'm just trying to give you how it is very important actually to be carefully listening to the narrative being transmitted day and night to state to classes or classrooms in the school. So how come that Iran, Turkey, and Ethiopia are good guys? Here is the answer. They are not Arabs, all of them. Turkey is not an Arab state. Iran is not an Arab state. Ethiopia is not an Arab state. Here you got kind of a solution. Arabs are bad, non-Arabs are good. Proof. If you go to that today, you would get almost the opposite. Iran is the fiercest enemy of Israel. Turkey, Erdogan is not a guy to be, let's just leave it, it's because it's an iffy case study. Arab states, well, they are reorientation. They are going through sort of a reorientation with regard to Israel, and UAE here is very, very, but of course this opens a huge door to the history of Jews of Arab lands. Something that until recently was obscure to many, many Israelis. So with that, actually, you get kind of an opening up the gates to a history which is yet to be told. You know, I'm talking about the Mizrahi history or Sephardi. The Ashkenazi history in Israel, this is well known. And they have the rights and all the privileges because they were the people who founded Israel. But those who came later on, slightly later on, Sepharadis, especially those Jews coming from Arab states, well, their story hasn't been told. And we are trying actually to recover things now, coming up with that in order to bring it into the academia. Have courses on it, have people, young people, students who are going to have PhD on that, because this is very important for Israel to heal the wounds, of course, actually, and to have kind of a complete narrative. Look at that. It's an Arabo-Hebrew sort of hybrid. What is written here in Hebrew is Bnei Dodin, in Arabic Ibn Am. Well, what is that? Cousins. So if Abraham is your father and he is my father too, let's say that we are at least distant cousins.
Where is it?
This is in kind of, okay, I'll tell you where is it. This is in Dubai. In Dubai, there is a museum that we happened to visit before the Abraham Accords. And when we were there were many, many things that were very, very strange. Because as I said before, actually, many chambers were commemorating the, kumbaya thing. We're going to sit together, Muslim and Jews and Christians. Let's do convivencia. In Spanish, convivencia is coexistence. Let's go back to Andalusia. And the first moment you see, you say, hey, that's a real joke. But then, this is what we got in that museum. This is the museum, if you would like to be there. It is being run by Ahmed al-Mazrou'i, which is my friend. Sorry? What is that? What?
The photo's missing.
Sorry?
The photo's missing of the museum.
This one? Just a minute.
Okay.
This is Crossroad of Civilization Museum. That was what we were very amazed by. A chamber which is commemorating the Holocaust. Wait a minute. There is a conspiracy here. Somebody knew that we are coming. And, you can't believe in that. Look at that. This picture, which is well known, of course. Photo, sorry. I was just sitting with my friends. He's running a museum, Ahmed, and I asking him actually, what is that? Are you serious? And it is. I discovered that he is basically a private collector. He's very fond of this stuff. He is commemorating his own legacy, but at the same time, this inter-religious, I would say, discourse. And when the Abraham Accords came, he was to be boosted, that guy, because that was part of the whole thing, and that had become a museum that every Israeli and Jew, I don't know how many Emiratis are visiting that, but is visiting this.
Uzi, do you know what these icons mean?
Yeah, once again, this state is very difficult to understand, because they do afraid that when they are moving forward, a hollow sound from the past is going to go for you. So always you are having that dance. All these are from the desert. This is ibex or oryx. I'm not that much of an expert on that, but these are kind of symbols taken from different civilizations. Different civilizations in the Arabian Peninsula, in other parts of the world, in order to say that cultures must work together. Religion is not something that differentiates necessarily me and you. Religion could be sort of a bridgehead by which we're gonna work together. This is Ahmad in Auschwitz. Yeah, he insisted of being there. He dressed that way. And this is, something that you should actually look at. This is Noura Al-Ka'bi. She is a minister of youth and women, I think. The Holocaust was a crime against humanity that had far-reaching consequences and cannot be condoned. This has become something that was said back and forth, time and again. And when you got back, in Israel they said, it's too good to be true. In a million years, you won't get that from an Arab and a Muslim world. I don't blame anybody for coming up with that. But you had to be very hesitant before jumping into conclusion with regard to that. Yom HaShoah, is being commemorated in Abu Dhabi.
Unreal.
This is kind of, and she would let me actually that. This is a lady from Bahrain, an Iraqi Jew that migrated to Bahrain. I mean, her grandfather. She used to be the first Bahraini ambassador to the US. Her name is Huda Nunu. And here actually she is coming up with Yom HaShana LaShoah. Let us commemorate and do the Remembrance Day here. When I was there actually, before the Abraham Accords, the guy who hosted me actually told me that, you know, one day we are going to build up the Abrahamic city. You know, I was so confused there. And I said, okay, what now? Tell me, what is the Abrahamic city? And he said, we're going to build up 3 monuments side by side, a mosque, a synagogue, and a church. This would be, it would be named actually the Abrahamic city. It was 2018, I think. And I said, now I am completely actually sure that all this is just mirage. People are selling stuff which is very, very far-fetched. And, you know, I got back, and when the Abraham Accords was signed, when we got there, I asked him once again, do you remember that 2 years ago, actually, you were talking about Abrahamic city? He said, yes, yes. We are starting to build it up. And then my Israeli not so generous curiosity actually came up with something. Can I see it? I mean, the beginnings or something like that. And you don't do that with these guys. You don't push. This is a very, very kind of a grave mistake when it comes to one-on-one. But since I pushed, he said, okay, if you insist, let's go there. You see nothing, it's desert, but it was nearby the Louvre. If you know Saadiyat Island in Abu Dhabi, that was the beginning of that. And I told him, so what do you think, when it is going to be inaugurated? And he said, I think in the end of 2022, if not in the early months of 2023. But rest assured, when it is there, I'm going to send you an invitation. I've been there actually in the 1st of March, 2023. This is the Abrahamic Center
In Dubai.
in Abu Dhabi.
In Abu Dhabi. Oh, sorry.
Abu Dhabi is the capital city. Dubai is for fun, business, money. It's, you know, it's the, Dubai is the Jerusalem. Yeah, sorry, Dubai is the Tel Aviv. Abu Dhabi is Jerusalem, so to speak. I mean,
Also, I was there for the first Shabbat, probably the week before you.
I have to tell you that, you know, you go there and you don't believe in that this is what you see. And you still think that maybe it's sort of a dream or something that would, you know, kind of a passing phenomenon. But it's there. This is the Abraham Accords. So what's the whole issue is? What can be found behind that? Yesterday I was interviewed, as I said, about Saudi Arabia, and I was attacked by the interviewer because he said, how come that Saudi Arabia wants to have normalization with Israel? What for? What they gonna get? Things that can tell you that, you know, in the Middle East you have kind of a gap which is unbridgeable at this moment, and it has to do with the back of mind of people about who the other is and how should I treat him. So culture is very important in order actually to start solve some stuff here. But I think that we got sort of a picture saying that if Israel is not my enemy, and I know who my enemy is, it would be Iran, it would be Islamic extremism, a la Qaeda or ISIS, we have to stay away from that. If we are going actually to be identified with that, we will have no future here. Second, and this is something that I actually hinted to in my previous presentation, Mother Nature. Mother Nature, I mean, these are states who are really anxious about the post-oily period, the day after, so to begin to have this syndrome. Renewable energies, they are supporting a lot of things that are going between Israel and Jordan, financially speaking, platforms of solaric energy, agrotech, Masdar City, this is the first sustainable urban community nearby Abu Dhabi, based on those, they are part and parcel of what we have in the Mediterranean. Israel builds up many cooperational, I would say, systems regarding natural gas with Cyprus, with Greece, with Egypt. That could go on to Morocco, that can go to Italy. And this is kind of a platform which goes against the whole logic. If you come to think of that, and economic, let us say, has to do with energetic stuff, is providing the Middle East an extension through the Mediterranean. See what I mean? If we are going actually to stay here, and my grandma actually always taught me, don't look at the sea. Where are we? Here. Only eastwards. Why should I actually refrain or prevent myself from looking at the sea? The sea is our end. They would like to throw out into the sea. This was Nasser's speeches. We're going to smash them and throw them into the sea. In Arabic, of course. Sea is an extension. You're going to have a broader Middle East. We're going to dance with Zorba, or what can you have? But, you know, Mediterranean is something which is very sort of a common denominator for, in my opinion, Greeks, Italians, Israelis, and others. We know that. Can we make it sort of another platform by which to build up broader cooperations? The notion is pretty clear. Once a state is becoming highly benefited from kind of a scheme or kind of an initiative which is being implemented, it would be very difficult for that state to go back to status quo ante. I can tell. Yeah. When it comes to the speeches, when it comes to the press, people would actually climb high as to just talk about their times immemorial monuments of their history. Shall never give up. We won't skip that, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to practice, it's different. And this is why here and in the Dayan Center, what we are trying to do is just to combine our academic knowledge and expertise with what can be found on the ground. We are not dealing with what should be the future. We are trying actually to have a breach between our knowledge and the praxis. And it's fascinating. Yes.
Red dot, I'm sorry, I must have missed it. Is that an oil field? Does that represent?
No, pipe. No, those pipes actually are going all the way in the Middle East. For example, now we have sort of an initiative where liquidation of gas is going actually to be held out in Egypt. Who needs natural gas more than ever before after the Ukraine war? Europe. So Europe is in the picture too. Everybody would like to the Mediterranean actually to become a hub for natural gas. Europe actually got its lesson. Never stick or be dependable on one player, as was the case with Russia. So, you know, if you are that smart to just look at that road, another dream. I don't know if that would come true, but if I would to gamble on it, I would say yes. 60-40. Haifa, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Emirates. This is a road, not that was invented by me, it's there. There are plans. Let's wait and see. But if the Abrahamic city actually was formed, this is a piece of cake.
Bullet train.
Yep. And the train. On top of that, let's see, this is what we are saying to Israel. You don't have to be necessarily a righteous guy. Try to be the wiser. If you come up with kind of a wisdom, cleverness, if you know actually the surroundings, if you are familiar with the cultures and the languages of states in the Middle East and beyond, because again, we have Mediterranean, we have Caucasus, we have Central Asia. If we know how to get there, first of all, culturally speaking, and economically speaking, and if we know actually to not patronizing the other, that's what Israel actually was doing. We are going to bring our genius mind. They're going to bring the money. You don't speak that way. You have to respect the other. You have to respect his otherness. And this is something that would lead us to a different place. This is Beirut. One time, Paris of the Middle East. Switzerland of the Middle East. Here. Look at Beirut. Look how unbearably, easily a thrived state is going to go into oblivion. This is Lebanon. You can speak to Lebanese all around the globe, in Montreal, in Europe, in the States. Maybe they are doing good, economically speaking, doing well, sorry. But they know. راحت علينا لبنان. Which means they don't see any chance that they would go in their lifetime, or even their sons and daughters or grandsons, to Lebanon. Definitely not the Lebanon they used to have. This is the other option. And this is what we have in the Middle East. Would you like actually to go all the way? Be the only righteous part in the world? Go with your head into the wall? This is actually what you're going to get in the end. If you would like to be wiser, try to listen to what he says. You don't have to accept what the other says, or he or she. But if you're going to have the ability and the expertise to know how to carefully listen to the other parties, to know, you know, in our laboratories, we do map them out. What does Egypt need? What they do need? What they are needing? I mean, you have to just make sure that you have the whole picture. Geo-economically, geo-ecologically, geopolitically, and culture is always should be there in order to make it easier. This is an ongoing march, fascinating in my opinion. I thank God that I have the opportunity actually to be a small part of that, in my opinion, historic march in this region, and I do hope that this would be the case. And you know, I would stop here, Charles, I think, and is that okay?
Uzi, thank you very much. I mean, amazing and what you have done. And besides what you have done, you have a responsibility to keep doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when I was in Israel in the 60s, I was in charge of one of the pumping stations in the Arava Desert of the Iranian oil that was coming in Eilat.
Yeah.
And it was a shock to me that in '79 all that stopped. Like you said, you know, things change. Another
You
thing.
know, at times students
Yeah.
do not believe me when I say that, you know.
No, I believe
Before 79, young students in Israel, actually, people in their 20s, you know, they you know, it's difficult to believe that Iran actually was the opposite thing until 1979 when it comes to
yeah.
Israel.
And you also mentioned, and that's why I interrupt you a second, about Barakat. We have studied the Barakat clan, which is actually Lebanese Shiite, in the Triple Border. We never found a relation to the Barakat Bank. Do you think that there might be, or it's just a coincidence in names?
שיהודה ידבר איתו על זה. You're going to have next week, actually, somebody who's an expert on that.
Oh, okay.
You know, I'm not that I can tell you one thing. Muslim brothers and what you have in Latin America, which is a different thing, this is sort of a real challenge. And once again, this is the negative side of things. You have to be very, very well organized on how to deal with that, because this is sort of a real octopus once again.
Octopus.
Yeah.
Joel?
Yeah, thank you very much for your talk. But I will ask you one thing. How could you explain that in Belgium, my country, the Emirates are financing an anti-Semitic party, really financing. It's called Christian.be, and this website and this political party will run in 2024. They accuse not the Israeli, but Belgian politician of origin, of Jewish origin, to be responsible, for instance, of COVID-19. And they are financed by this state. I will give you all the proof if you're
Yeah.
interested. And if you have good relations, please try to convince
No, not way. Listen,
$3 billion. No, this is an example. And the funny thing is, you're extremely optimistic. Thank God it's good. But to dance, to have a tango, you need to be two. And I will ask you, do you think that, considering the current trends in Israel, with what's happening with Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, and Netanyahu being responsible of Israel, that this country would be able to make peace?
they have another presentation with the
You have to
Oscars,
make
right?
peace.
No, he's
And you have
finished.
to accept
It's finished, the
also
Oscars?
the other.
He didn't talk about that?
He did, yeah,
He did?
he did. A little
Well,
bit.
I know that you had a presentation about Israeli peculiarities. What we got in Israel is very, very problematic in a sense. You know, I have to tell you. First of all, it's a matter for Israelis to deal with that problem. But Israel would have to be very creative and to take the right decisions with regard, for example, to that. Because if Saudi Arabia, and once again, I'm not trying even for a single moment to say that these guys are, I don't know, pious, they are to be trusted. No, not at all. In the Middle East, it is always, you know, you have to respect him and at the same time to be suspicious. You have to. But, kabdeu v'chashdeu. But, having said that, you know, those states are very smart. I'm not going to give you an exact or direct answer to what you asked because I'm not familiar with what you said. Yep. We'll double check that too. But let me tell you one thing. There is a cunning state in the Gulf, Qatar. Qatar is doing something that can be explained, if you ask me, logically. I wrote an article about that, actually naming it the foreign policy of Qatar, keeping all channels of communication open. What does that mean? I'm not going actually to live behind a closed door. It will always be open. If I can pay some money and leave it open, and that would ease the situation with, I don't know, a certain community in Antwerpen, or I'm not sure about that, it's worth a try. Because in the end of the day, it has to do with money. They used to be that big time with the really, really bad guys. They won't do that anymore. And this is something that, tells you that in the end of the day, you have to be suspicious. You have to be just, I'm not buying anything. But what can I tell you? I'm sitting in my classroom. I'm teaching a course on the United Arab Emirates or Bahrain. Students, Tel Aviv University. And there's a student actually coming up with she's coming up with a question about women in United Arab Emirates. So very, very sensitive issue, because this is in the end of the day a patriarchal society. And you say, you know what, this is a very good question. Let's just read some stuff about that and let's just discuss it in our next gathering. And then I'm just having a phone call to my friend in University of Abu Dhabi. I asked her whether she could actually come up Zoom and talk to my students on that sensitive issue. And she says yes. I'm coming the next lesson, and we are opening up the Zooms, and they do talk to her, asking her stuff that in a million years they wouldn't even dreamed of actually asking the other side. The second half was actually a seminar in the Emirates with the same students, Israeli students. Think of this experience for Israelis. This is not Egypt and Jordan. When you are in Egypt, in Cairo, in Rabat, in Amman, I have many friends there and I like it. But I can tell you, the atmosphere is different. Something in the air is not well taken. When you are there, and that would be, every tourist would tell you that, not only Israeli, you feel safe. Almost like in Oxford. Maybe even less, more than that. You have kind of a different spirit. So,
Logan?
Thank you for the talk. My question is, have anti-Semitic beliefs declined in the Atlantic population in recent years? Like, have these tolerance initiatives been successful?
I can't hear you. Can you speak up? Sorry for that.
Have anti-Semitic beliefs declined in the Emirati population in recent years? Like, have these tolerance initiatives been changing beliefs with the Emirati?
Big time. You cannot abuse somebody for his not be anti-Semitic and just, say something like, let's say, sorry for that, a Jew. You can't say that. Because you are going actually to be arrested for that. You cannot say that against a Buddhist or any other. The thing is that it's a top-down affair. It's not bottom-up. But you know what? I do believe now that top-down works. Not 100%, but partially. And you can see that. I haven't seen that kind of an expression. And when it comes to tolerance, it's all over the place. All over the place. It is a good question because, once again, it's a top-down thing. And many people would say, hey, how do you know that people do internalize that? I tell you what, I mean, disabled, for example. You know how they are being, what is that in English? I know it in Arabic. People of determination. This is how they would define disabled. And they are the first country in the world, or the first state in the world, in terms of creating all these facilities would be accessible for the people who are not able actually to move. You would say that, you know, there was kind of a handicapped woman here in my neighbor, and she said, I would like to go there. You know, Israel is in the first place actually said, wow, Arab Muslim state, and people got back saying that we didn't feel that we are Jews. I mean, nobody actually gave us the feeling that we are different. And this is big for Jews, basically, in Arab and Islamic states. And she said, I wish I could go there, but, you know, I am with a wheelchair, I can't. And we talked to some friends there. You know, you could get there the most comfortable, actually, journey as a tourist when you are wheelchaired, actually, basically. And she went there, and it went smoothly. And you know, it is, you are coming to my tent. This is, you know, if I would try to provide kind of a cultural response to answer to what you said. Once you are in my tent, you are the king, not me. This is a very, very deep principle coming from the Bedouin, deserty society. Israel actually was assassinated in 2010. A Hamas guy named Mabhouh. That was an imbroglio. Because they said, and I can tell you that, last time you are doing that, you should not do such things in my tent. Not to my visitors. You see, I mean, what I'm trying to say, first of all, yes, I mean, it's big time to your question, but if you know how to conduct your, you know, your behavior when you are there, when you talk to them, and you can adjust yourself to the circumstances, you can move forward pretty well.
There's a quote that was adopted by the Spanish diplomats, and they studied in the Spanish Academy of Diplomacy, or did they say, las palabras nos cargan diablo? The devil,
No, the devil,
right?
yeah.
Or it weaponizes the words. And I received a mixed message, actually, when you were saying that we can partner with them, but not trust them. It sends me back, actually, to what I was listening just a few days ago, that we host Jews in all Europe. We work with them, but we don't trust them. We keep an eye on them.
I'm not putting it that way.
But this is
No,
what
no,
this
no.
is the way it's perceived.
Be suspicious. This is actually kind of a lifeline in the Middle East. What do you want me to be? A guy which would be full of naivete? No, I mean, you can't have that in the
No,
Middle
of course,
East.
I took
You have to be very, very suspicious, not in the negative manner, okay? Not in the negative manner. Remember one thing. You know, you are dealing with the fate of your own country. And you are coming up with some very, very new ventures and new initiatives that are you are very thrilled about that. But you cannot be carried away. I always tell myself, because people say, hey, what happened to you? You know, at times I feel like, you know, Lawrence of Arabia. You know what happened to Lawrence? Lawrence was trying actually to get into the conference in Paris in 2019, after the First World War. And Allenby was asked, should we let Lawrence in? And that was the question, no. And they asked, why? The guy was actually the orchestrator of the Arab revolt. He came with Prince Faisal. They are here. And he said, hey guys, no, not guys, he didn't say that. He said, Allenby said, Lawrence, he is too British to be an Arab and too Arab to be a British. I can't trust him. So at times people come up with me and say, hey, what do you say here? That what we had thought for years was wrong? Yes, it was wrong. Because if you're going to work with the people around, Arab world, Islamic world, you know, for us, except of the world of Walt Disney, there is no such words. And we have to be very, very careful, keenly aware of the differences. And believe me, I didn't say that as in kind of a negative spirit or manner. You know, you have to be suspicious. You know what I mean.
No, for me, I understand completely the meaning of what you're saying. It's just pointed out to
Well, you have to deal, you have to live with the mix.
A lot of questions.
You have to live with the
So
mix.
Inbal and then Carolyn, and can we collect 2 questions? There's a lot of questions. So Inbal, a quick question, Carolyn, and then you can respond to 2 at one time.
Yeah, sure. 2 for 1.
Thank you very much for the important insights. In your opinion, are there any activities with Israel and the Jewish community to make to promote different normalization of the Arab acres and the current complicated strategy?
I think that this is exactly what we are doing in the academia. You know, let me give you one thing. You know that in Bal, we are in the Moshe Dayan Center, do hold 4 MOUs with research centers in the United Arab Emirates and 1 in Bahrain. And we are having reciprocal visits. You know, we talk about everything, but you know what the main thing we are talking about? It's not Iran or Palestinian state or not. We are talking about students exchange. We are talking about narratives. We are talking about actually having a kind of a joint venture when it comes to religious discourse. We sent our students to sit in this museum and others with Muslims and Christians and others to just talk together. You know, in the academia, you have the privilege to go through the cultural, historical path in order to set the stage for things to come. And this is exactly what we are doing. Yes, definitely.
Carolyn, very brief. No, okay. Aaron, quickly, briefly, please.
You know, I can just ask him in private. It might be a longer question. So, you want me to ask it?
Yeah.
Yeah, be brief. But go.
2020, I was in a White House briefing on anti-Semitism, did the invocation. Speaking was Elon Carr, Special Envoy to Fight Anti-Semitism, then Avi Berkowitz, who was instrumental in writing the Abraham Accords. And I left the White House just so amazed, like, this is gonna happen. And Avi Abraham was writing the Abraham Accords. How cool was that? And then the whole Trump thing exploded. And so the question is now, do you feel like you've been launched out of a boat diplomatically by yourself to try to fulfill the Abraham Accords, or there's still American backing? And again, I'm not a Trump person, but
No, I mean, America should be in the picture because the Abraham Accords, you should remember, this is kind of a result of an American understanding that enough is enough with the Middle East. They don't want to have another Iraq, another Afghanistan. So in a way, the Abraham Accords, geopolitically speaking, is to let your allies in this region understand, hey, come together, come up with one big effort of yourself. We are going to support you from behind. This is something, yes, and I think that even Biden, when I say even because he is, he is due sort of a de-Trumpized policies as Trump did to Obama. This is the case in the US every time actually the president is being replaced. But Biden actually, definitely in that sense of the Abraham Accords, he didn't actually try to make them null and void. He actually understood from the beginning that this is something that has to be kept because it is part and parcel of the American strategy for this region, the Middle East, in my opinion. So they have to be there. I think that it is this, and of course, many things that should be done by most Israelis and Emiratis together. I hope that we are doing good.
Israeli normalization agreements seem a lot more promising than previous peace agreements. So do you think Israeli-UAE relations have a potential to set the tone for the future Israeli-Arab relations in the region, or it's just gonna stay in its own area?
No, I think that yes, there are states like Morocco that were on board, and of course Morocco goes with Western Sahara, and don't hold it against Morocco because everybody for itself. Remember that. So you have to understand what a certain state has in mind when it comes actually on negotiating
By the
something.
way, it's offensive for me when I see the territorial, disputed territory of Western Sahara, the geographic location separated from Morocco.
I know.
And that Israel recognized full sovereignty and the US recognized full sovereignty. So it's a bit shocking.
I know. You told me that one. I mean, in the previous discussion, but it's.
We're running over the time.
But just a minute. I just had the big. No. I mean, the game changer is Saudi Arabia. Game changer is Saudi Arabia. I'll tell you why. Saudi Arabia is a key player in the Arab fault. This is the guardian of the holy sites, holy shrines in Mecca and Medina. Saudi Arabia, if it is in, they are not going to repeat the Sadat thing, mano a mano. No, they are going to come up with a big door, and they are going to bring in some other, and they are going to put some pressure on Israel to come up with something which is more balanced regarding the Palestinians, and this would maybe create something different. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're
More to
running,
come.
I'm gonna be dictatorial, running out of time. Lev, Naya, and James, you have 10 seconds to articulate a specific question, and we're gonna collect them. What's the question?
Uzi, where's China in the picture, and can it be that the US is just trying to get ahead of China?
Thank you. Excellent question.
Totally wrong?
Thank you. Hold on. Naya?
I'm asking as an educator, because I teach this subject. In the beginning, you showed a map of the world.
Question.
And, okay, the question is, you said that it's fragmented, okay?
The Middle East.
The Middle East, not monolithic. What do you make, and this could be so simplistic of me, of the flags of the Middle East, each of which the colors to each a caliphate, to Umayyad Caliphate? Can you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah.
Important.
okay.
Thank you. James?
My only comment is that.
Question.
No, it's not a question. It's
No.
a quick statement.
Okay.
Quick statement is, taking my 10 seconds. The quick statement is that this has not just happened overnight. It's been scaffolding for years, for decades, and that's how it's going to evolve, with everybody's interest being taken.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you. Uzi, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, China is there. And you know, when Blinken is, the foreign secretary actually is visiting Riyadh, it is also actually to just appease the Saudis and make sure that they are not tilting to China. Remember that what the Saudis and the Iranians did together is an agreement. Who was the broker? We talked about it before. China. No, America wouldn't like actually to leave the door open for China from top to bottom. Definitely there are just checks and balances here, and I think that this is also should be taken into the account, what you just said about China. But China is all over the place. Once again, we don't have time to, but I guess that Belt and Road strategy, the final destination of Belt and Road strategy is Europe, South Europe, and the last bridge before jumping into South Europe would be Mediterranean and the Middle East. So, you know, if you go through Singapore and Indian Ocean and Bab el Mandeb and the Red Sea and Suez Canal and Haifa, you would see what they are there. You have to deal with that. Let me just maybe quote kind of a very, very educated Saudi prince, Saud al-Faisal, when he was asked about what the difference between China and the US is with regard to the Saudis. He said China is not necessarily a better friend than the US, but it is definitely a less complicated one. You know what I mean? Yes. And what was
Caliphates and
forgot?
the flags and the caliphate.
All of them have the colors.
It's not the caliphate of ISIS.
No, I didn't say it was.
No. So I mean, listen. If you go to the museums in the UAE, you would find the Abbasid Caliphate, the Umayyad Kingdom, and even and of course the stuff of the Khulafa Rashidun, which was the beginning. Why? Because you are building up your ethos for UAE citizens. For example, I'm just taking them, but it's just all over the place, because you don't want somebody to come up and say, listen, who are you? Where did you come from? Everybody is appropriating those caliphates in order to have a multi-layered rich history with which to build up a real ethos when it comes to citizenship. And this you could see in the museum. By the way, textbooks and museums are basically, in my opinion, the best thing to go when you are trying actually to do what you do as an educator. This is definitely very telling if you're going to delve into it and just glean from that many.
Uzi, thank you.